Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. Welcome back to Valorant News. Some major updates yesterday. All the teams in the Valorant Franchise League were leaked and confirmed yesterday by a massive spreadsheet that Riot silently released. Some information we weren't yet aware of, but also on the tier 2 side, some very interesting developments as well. Very much into your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I'd greatly appreciate it. It really helps out the channel. Thanks very much indeed for doing that one. Firstly, thought this is pretty funny actually, as NRG say, basically making fun of OpTic, right? So here we go. This is their NRG announcement video. Thought it was, well, okay, it's 12 seconds long. It's basically the same as the one that OpTic did, if you guys remember that. But it's also kind of funny because they put the players in the same order. So we've got Chet, the coach, on the right-hand side, then Crashies, then FNS, then the main man in the middle, then you've got Victor, Som, and Artist rounding out the team. Now, this is a parody, basically, of this video that OpTic did when they first confirmed OpTic Valorant was a thing. Of course, it was formerly Envy, and then it became OpTic. And you guys can see the similar things. You've got Hex in the middle here, and then it's the same order of players with their replacements in turn. And this was the 12-second video that they made, where, you know, it's kind of funny because you'd have thought that for an announcement like this, they'd have done a really cool video. They kind of got roasted at the time for not really putting much effort in. They just did a picture and made a video just like this. And NRG are now taking the mick out of it, basically, because, yeah, NRG and OpTic, they have a little bit of a fractious relationship over the last couple of years, if you guys know the whole Hex and Andy Miller saga that was going down. Let's talk TSM, because some drama on TSM we're going to talk about in a few minutes time, but also this, they've released their Game Changers roster, their female team, and they've also released their Academy team. Now, we're not exactly sure what the rules are, I believe, right now for the franchise ecosystem next year, because I think the initial discussion was the teams might have to have an Academy roster, right? There was an argument to say, if all the teams are mandated to field an Academy in Tier 2, that is great for the challenger scene. The issue is with that, of course, is that Ascension does exist. Teams can win through Tier 2 and qualify for Tier 1. And if that happens to be an Academy roster, then what happens, right? What is the implication there? Like, you know, is there any conflict of interest? Of course there is. You can't have two teams with the same organization in the same league, so you'd have to get another organization to buy them out. You know, what's the implication there? So some questionable stuff. So therefore, not sure Riot are really going to do that or even allow that possibility, right? Like if you are a sick, for example, on Sentinels bench, can you compete in Tier 2? Is that a possibility? You would imagine that it really should be to stay warm and stay fresh and stay ready, but it might not be allowed. So that's still a question to be answered. And also on the Game Changers side, there was some discussion there as to whether teams would be mandated to have a Game Changers roster. But I mean, yeah, still, if they're not mandated to have an Academy, feels a little bit strange they'd be forced to have a Game Changers roster. And TSM have released both of their teams apart from their pro team. So, well, he's not even going to be a Tier 1 team, it's Tier 2 regardless. So I guess it doesn't really make sense for TSM to have an Academy and a pro team anyway, because they're both in Tier 2. So what does it really matter? But still, some questions for these other teams in Tier 1 to answer, such as Evil Geniuses. Now, we saw this the other day, confirmation that Potter is going to stay as the coach. Boostio, Com, Jorgemo, Ethan, and BCJ will be the starting team. Apoth and Reformed from the previous roster on the bench. But they confirmed in this video they were going to be forming a 10-man team. And this is one of the craziest things I've ever seen an organization do. And I've got to respect it in some way or another. They confirmed the following yesterday. Think you have what it takes to be an Evil Geniuses? Now is your chance to be invited to the EG Valorant Showcase. Compete for a chance on our 10-person roster with a contract to live, train, and be a pro Valorant player in LA. Accepting applications starting today. So this is like absolute madness, right? I mean, this is crazy for an organization to do this. But what they're saying is they've got a 10-man team, and maybe just one spot on that 10-man lineup, or maybe more than one spot, will go to someone who applies. Someone who says, you know what, I think I've got what it takes. I'm going to apply here. I'm going to show off my skills, get flown out to LA potentially, and show the EG guys in person what you've got, and they'll bring you on as an Academy player, basically in their kind of 10-man roster. The coaching staff will look into this and then accept someone. It's kind of like a competition, right? If you guys think you're good enough to compete in the VCT, then get involved in this. Send your application into Evil Geniuses. They'll review it, and if they think you're good enough, they might invite you to actually be a pro player on their bench. Now, I think this honestly kind of makes sense in a way. I mean, it's interesting and it's kind of surprising that they would even do this and a team would do this rather than, you know, having scouts and having the coaching staff look at players from Tier 2 and decide who they're going to bring in. To do this is pretty crazy, to be honest, but I mean, it's certainly a viable option because the rest of their team is pretty much determined. Like, everything else is set in stone, really, right? I mean, they've got everything else sorted. They've got their 5-man starting team. They've got Apoth and Reform, a couple of good bench players anyway. Do they need another, you know, rest of the 3 people to be other pro players that potentially could get into the team, potentially not? Why not give someone else a chance? And this is a remarkable way to do it, but I'm looking forward to seeing how this one turns out. Let's talk about all the leaks then that came out yesterday. Now, Now, Riot Games did not announce this publicly, but they released a contract database. And this is actually a really big deal, and I wish they'd do this in other esports, to be honest. Like, we've been asking for this in Call of Duty for a long time, but it basically confirms everyone that's been signed so far, and also what the contract looks like when they expire, which is also a really big deal in terms of how long these contracts last for. Now, Bo goes on to put like an absolutely mega thread here in, so I don't exactly want to go through every single thing here, but it's we'll look at the spreadsheet here in a second. Basically, this just confirms every single team that has been signed so far, and he goes through like every single one. I mean, like, we can scroll down here for a very long time, and you'll still be seeing teams come through. So we'll go through one of the spreadsheets here in a second, but one thing to note here about the spreadsheet is that some of these deals are signed for a long time. Like, Nats to Liquid is till 2026, and others have been signed to 2026 as well. You know, this is the max contract length. You can sign players seemingly for up to maybe a 4-year deal. You've got the 2023 season, 24, 25, and 26. So Nats has signed a long-term arrangement here with Liquid, which is interesting. Now, the contracts don't mean everything, right? You know, buyouts are potentially involved if situations were to occur, but still they're interesting nonetheless. So, you know, one of the other things to say is that 100 Thieves have a new player associated with their team, and that's James IRL. Now, he's signed as a player on the spreadsheet, but more than likely he's there as an assistant coach because, you know, we saw that Sean Gares stepped away. Makes sense, of course, you know, former head coach for Cloud9. So thought that was pretty cool. This is the spreadsheet here in question that can be looked at and scrolled through and everything like that. And this is just one particular screenshot of it, especially in the North American side. So as you guys can see, for 100 Thieves, James IRL is signed as a player here. So, you know, it's a bit interesting because they've got a head coach contract thing related, but if you've got an assistant coach, not sure you can necessarily specify that. So they've gone down this route, and you can see the end date of their contract. So many of these players are signed until 2024, which I guess is kind of like a 2-year deal, really. You know, they do the 2023 and 2024 season. Reformed, for example, here on Evil Geniuses is only on a 1-year contract until 2023, and Cupid, actually, who's going to be helping out on the Cloud9 side, he's until 2026. So, I mean, yeah, most of these deals till 2024, but interesting to see, right, that some players, you know, even Cloud9, they've got deals until 2025 that most teams have gone for and signed to that length of a contract. So, you know, Cloud9 and 100T, they're confident in the deals to that length. But Sentinels, for example, haven't signed their deals to the same length. This I thought was particularly interesting down here for Sentinels. So we can see Loud, Leviathan, the other teams as well. But NRG, Victor is signed until 2025, as is FNS and Crashies. Arnis until 2024, Som until 2023. So he's only got a 1-year extension to his deal, and at the end of next season, they will have to re-sign. The same situation here for Sentinels. Now, they've only re-signed TenZ for another year, so they've only done a 1-year deal until the end of 2023, and then, you know, again, the free agency drama potentially is getting raised. TenZ probably will re-sign another year's deal, you would imagine, but they've not signed TenZ, and it's interesting we can see this for a 2 or 3 or even 4-year deal to lock him down. They've only extended him for 1 more season, maybe because he's asking for a lot of money, right, and they didn't want to commit that much up front. The rest of the guys they've signed for 2 years until 2024. So what do you guys think about all this stuff? Right, it's pretty interesting. We can see this. TenZ only signed for 1 year. Certain players signed for 4 years in the case of Nat, so he's going to be there for a long time. Also, we see from NIP, apparently they're going to take a hiatus from Valorant and not even compete in the Challengers Tier 2 ecosystem next time around. Just to talk about as well on Tier 2, right, because as ShahZaM says, ranked has not been fun. You can understand why players like ShahZaM in that situation are not so happy just grinding ranked all day and would much prefer to actually compete in Tier 2. And one team we might see is the TSM side. So if you guys look at the bottom here, we've got Xander, Koala Noob. These guys are on this kind of as yet unknown organization, playing up against the guards with Jonah P, Trent, and Valiant on the roster. Now, the top side is maybe more interesting. So Zekken and Dephh, of course, playing some sort of scrim, but TSM 7, Hazed, and Governor playing a scrim here together themselves. Now, 7, we think, as it stands, is still on TSM. He might not be on TSM anymore, but if he is, then Hazed was practicing with him last night, which is interesting just because, you know, as we can see in this image right here, the TSM team, we're not really sure what they're doing, but 7 is still there, and it's arguable that maybe as an IGL, Hazed, formerly NRG, might come in here to TSM. So that's another one to keep your eyes on. No major update all across the world for that one, quite as it stands. Quickly on Will as well, a little update on his looking for team situation. I still want to explore all my options before making a final decision. Most comfortable roles, flex, then duelist. As yet, we haven't really seen Will link too many places, so hopefully he can find a spot over the coming days as well. And just to mention then, before we close out the video, the Game Changers World Championship in Berlin begins today, and you can actually get drops by watching. So yeah, November the 15th through to the 19th, and I believe the finals are going to be on the 20th, which I suppose makes sense as well. But very much interested in your thoughts thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you are new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.